He said it as a joke, a simple comment. But then, the replies started. He thought the Midnight Circle was just another internet myth, until they proved him wrong. Now, something is watching, something is waiting, and it's already too late to take it back. Let's begin, but be careful what you laugh at. Some things haunt you for life. Ethan had always been known as a troublemaker in his online circles, a sharp-tongued Redditor who never hesitated to mock those he considered dangerous. Late one night, fueled by arrogance and a desire for notoriety, he posted a scathing comment on a controversial thread, ridiculing a mysterious group known only as the Midnight Circle. He joked that they were nothing more than a bunch of paranoid conspiracy theorists, a mere punchline for internet memes. Little did he know that careless post would mark the beginning of a nightmare that would unravel his life. In the days that followed, Ethan began receiving cryptic messages on his phone and email. At first, they were nothing more than odd, untraceable warnings, short phrases like, "Don't mess with us," and "We are coming." He dismissed them as pranks from online trolls, but a growing knot of anxiety formed in his stomach each time he saw a new message. The messages became more frequent and disturbing. One night, as he sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, his phone buzzed with a text that simply read, "I warned you." The red digits glowed in the dark, and for a moment, Ethan's bravado faltered as he wondered if his online antics had finally caught up with him. The first real sign of trouble came on a rainy Thursday evening. Ethan was working late in his cluttered living room when a sudden, violent knock shattered the silence. His heart pounded as he approached the door, his pulse thundering in his ears. Peeking through the peephole, he saw nothing but the downpour outside. Yet, when he opened the door just a crack, a cold gust of wind swept past him, carrying with it the faint echo of hushed voices. The sensation was unnerving, almost as if unseen hands had brushed against his skin. He slammed the door shut, a chill creeping up his spine that he couldn't shake off. Over the next several days, the eerie disturbances escalated. At night, when Ethan tried to sleep, he would wake up to soft footsteps pacing in the hallway, or the sound of a door creaking open slowly, then shutting abruptly, as if someone had just passed through. One morning, he found muddy footprints on his apartment floor that led from his back door all the way to his living room, disappearing mysteriously under his bed. Desperate to prove to himself that it was all a figment of his stressed mind, Ethan set up his camera to record the hallway overnight. The next day, as he reviewed the footage, his blood ran cold. In one segment, barely visible in the dim light, a dark figure with a distorted face seemed to stare directly into the camera for a split second before vanishing into the shadows. That moment, captured on film, was his undeniable confirmation that something was very, very wrong. Ethan's once safe space transformed into a claustrophobic prison of terror. Every creak of the floor, every unexpected whisper, reminded him of his fatal mistake online. He tried to reach out to the members of the Midnight Circle, but his messages went unanswered. In the midst of his isolation, the group's presence seemed to seep into every corner of his life. Late at night, while Ethan sat hunched over his computer trying to work, his screen would suddenly flicker, and a distorted face would appear for an instant. A face filled with malice and sorrow, as if it bore the weight of countless lost souls. The face whispered a single sentence in a raspy tone. "You shouldn't have done that." And then the screen went black. One particularly harrowing evening, Ethan decided to leave his apartment for a walk, hoping the fresh air might clear his troubled mind. As he stepped out onto the rain-soaked streets, The storm felt unusually intense, with thunder roaring like a beast in the distance. The rain masked the sound of footsteps that seemed to follow him relentlessly. He quickened his pace, glancing over his shoulder repeatedly, only to see fleeting shadows disappearing around corners. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, a tall, gaunt man in a long, tattered coat, his eyes hidden behind a brimmed hat. The man stood silently for a few agonizing seconds before vanishing as quickly as he appeared. That encounter sent a surge of panic through Ethan, confirming his worst fear. He had attracted the attention of the very people he had mocked. If you have come so far into this story, I'd like you to give a thumbs up. Let's keep a target of 100 likes and subscribe to our channel for more such content. Let's continue. Back at his apartment, the terror intensified. Doors would slam shut on their own, and the sound of disembodied laughter echoed through the halls. Late one night, while Ethan sat in the dark, clutching a flashlight, he heard a series of knocks on his front door that reverberated through the empty space. Mustering the courage, he opened the door, only to be met with a thick, black fog that swallowed the outside world. Through the swirling mist, he caught a glimpse of several shadowy figures moving silently in formation. In a burst of adrenaline, he slammed the door and locked it, his mind racing as he tried to comprehend the horror unfolding around him. Back at his apartment, the terror intensified. Doors would slam shut on their own, and the sound of disembodied laughter echoed through the halls. Late one night, while Ethan sat in the dark, clutching a flashlight, he heard a series of knocks on his front door that reverberated through the empty space. Mustering the courage, he opened the door, only to be met with a thick, black fog that swallowed the outside world. Through the swirling mist, he caught a glimpse of several shadowy figures moving silently in formation. In a burst of adrenaline, he slammed the door and locked it, his mind racing as he tried to comprehend the horror unfolding around him. Determined to put an end to the nightmare, Ethan decided to document every unsettling occurrence and post it online, hoping that exposing the Midnight Circle might force them into the open. He recorded audio of the strange whispers, video of the fleeting shadow figures, and even the ominous messages that had plagued him. With trembling hands, he uploaded the files to Reddit, crafting a post titled, "I messed with the wrong people. My terrifying encounter with the Midnight Circle." He expected ridicule, perhaps even disbelief, but instead, his post exploded with comments. Some warned him of ancient grudges and secret societies, while others shared eerily similar experiences. Among the comments, a few usernames repeated over and over, their messages laced with anger and threats. Ethan's heart sank as he realized that his online confession had only fanned the flames of the terror he had unleashed. That same night, as Ethan lay awake in his bed, the room plunged into darkness once more. The silence was broken by a chilling creak, followed by a sudden, blood-curdling scream that seemed to come from right outside his door. In terror, he grabbed his phone and dialed 911. But the line went dead before anyone could answer. The power flickered, and in that brief moment of dim light, he saw a reflection in the mirror. A group of men, their faces shadowed and eyes burning with a cold, relentless fury, staring right back at him. The sight was enough to make him scream and drop his phone. In the ensuing chaos, the figures vanished, leaving Ethan trembling in the silence of his apartment, certain that they were watching, waiting for their moment. The following morning, Ethan found his apartment ransacked. Papers were strewn about, and his computer was smashed beyond repair. On his front door, written in what looked like dark, dried ink, were the words, "You cannot escape us." The realization hit him like a tidal wave. He had truly messed with the wrong people, and now they were closing in. With no safe haven left, Ethan fled his apartment and sought refuge with a friend in a distant town. But the nightmares followed him. In his dreams, he could see the cold, unyielding eyes of his tormentors, and every shadow seemed to whisper of impending doom. Over the next few weeks, the terror persisted. Ethan was hounded by anonymous calls and found chilling notes left on his doorstep. At night, he could still hear the distant echo of footsteps and the soft murmur of voices reciting warnings he could never quite understand. The haunting message of "I warned you" played over and over in his mind, a constant reminder of his foolish arrogance. His once carefree life was now consumed by fear, and every day became a desperate struggle to stay one step ahead of those who sought retribution. In a final, desperate bid to reclaim his life, Ethan attempted to track down the origins of the Midnight Circle. Through online forums and cryptic clues left in the dark corners of the internet, what he discovered only deepened his horror. The group was not a modern creation of angry online users, but a secret society with roots stretching back centuries. A group that had enforced ancient codes and exacted brutal justice on those who dared to disrupt their hidden order. The more Ethan learned, the more he realized that his actions had awakened a force that was far beyond his control. The climax of his ordeal came one stormy night when, as he sat in a borrowed motel room, the power went out with a sudden jolt. In the oppressive darkness, he heard the unmistakable sound of knocking. This time, not on a door, but directly at the window. When he mustered the courage to peer out, he saw, illuminated briefly by lightning, a figure standing outside. The figure's eyes glowed with a sinister light as it slowly raised a hand and pointed directly at him. In that moment, Ethan knew that escape was impossible. He was marked, hunted, and there was nowhere to run from the relentless wrath of those he had so carelessly provoked. Ethan's final post on Reddit came in a rushed, frantic burst of text. "I messed with the wrong people. They're coming for me." It was the last trace anyone ever saw of him. In the quiet aftermath, his account went silent, leaving behind a chilling legend on the internet. A modern ghost story of a man who had challenged a secret society and paid the ultimate price. Years later, the tale of Ethan's disappearance would circulate on Reddit and other forums, a warning to all who would dare to mock the forces that dwell in the shadows of society. And late at night, in the flickering glow of computer screens, some claim to catch a glimpse of a cryptic message in the comments. "You cannot escape the past," as if the ghosts of those who had wronged him were still out there, waiting for their next victim. Still here, enjoying our content. Please give a thumbs up to show your support. Remember the target of 100 likes and subscribe to our channel for more such content. Let's continue. The second incident. They chased me home. Dylan had always enjoyed the thrill of late-night Reddit sessions, dark humor, heated debates, and even the occasional disturbing thread that made him shudder in the quiet hours of the night. One autumn evening, as the wind howled outside his small apartment and rain battered the windows, he logged on and stumbled upon a heated discussion in a fringe subreddit known for its conspiracies and unexplained incidents. With a mix of curiosity and bravado, he joined the conversation, posting a sarcastic comment, mocking some of the more outlandish claims. His comment read, "Reddit is scary. but you all aren't that scary, unless you decide to chase me home. He meant it as a joke, a playful jab at the anonymous users behind their screens. He didn't imagine that his careless words would set off a chain of events that would turn his life into a waking nightmare. At first, nothing happened. Dylan carried on with his evening, scrolling through memes and replying to harmless posts. But as midnight approached, his phone began to buzz incessantly with notifications. New messages, replies, and even private messages flooded in, each one bearing the same chilling phrase: "They're coming for you." At first, he thought it was the work of trolls imitating his tone, but the messages soon became too persistent and too detailed. One message even referenced his apartment address. His heart pounded as he tried to dismiss the warnings, believing them to be part of an elaborate online prank. However, unease grew like a poison in his veins. The next morning, Dylan awoke to a stormy sky and a sense of dread that he couldn't shake off. As he made his coffee, he noticed something odd. His front door, which he always ensured was locked before sleeping, was slightly ajar. With trembling hands, he approached it and pushed it open, half expecting to find a prankster waiting outside. Instead, there was nothing but the relentless drizzle and a trail of muddy footprints leading from the door into the hallway. His stomach churned. The footprints were too deliberate, too fresh, and they ended abruptly by his living room window. That same window, he recalled with mounting horror, had been sealed shut the night before due to renovations. Dylan's pulse raced as he locked the door and double-checked every window in his apartment. The feeling of being watched had grown unbearable. He turned on every light in the room, but the shadows remained, lurking in corners, as if they had a life of their own. He spent the morning in a state of constant alert, checking his phone and scanning the room for any signs of intrusion. The messages on Reddit continued to pour in, now accompanied by blurred photos of figures in dark clothing and text scrawled across them. Reddit warned you. That evening, as the rain pounded against the windows and thunder rumbled in the distance, Dylan resolved to find out more. He logged back into Reddit, his hands still trembling, and found that his post had exploded. Hundreds of comments, many of them hostile, some claiming to have seen him, and others threatening retribution. His heart sank as he scrolled through the thread. A username that he hadn't seen before kept replying with chilling precision, describing events that seemed to be happening right then. "I see you, Dylan. They are here," the user wrote, and attached a short video clip. With dread coiling in his stomach, Dylan clicked play. The video showed a shaky view of a dark figure standing outside his window, its face obscured by the rain. The figure was motionless for a few agonizing seconds before disappearing into the night. Desperation overcame Dylan as he decided he needed to leave the apartment. Gathering his few belongings, he locked his door, grabbed his car keys, and stepped out into the storm. The rain was a cold, relentless sheet, and every flash of lightning illuminated the desolate street outside his building. He hurried to his car, checking over his shoulder repeatedly, half expecting to see someone following him. The streets were empty, but the oppressive feeling of being hunted made his skin crawl. Driving away from the apartment, Dylan's mind raced with questions. Who were they? How had his simple comment spiraled into a horrifying ordeal? He reached a gas station on the outskirts of town and decided to call a friend for help. The friend listened in shock as Dylan recounted the events and urged him to return home and lock everything down. "They might be watching you," his friend warned in a trembling voice. But when Dylan tried to call his apartment from his car, The line was dead. A cold shiver ran down his spine as he realized that his connection to the outside world had been severed. That night, in the relative safety of a motel room far from his apartment, Dylan attempted to piece together the mystery. Every time he checked his phone, the same messages appeared. They know where you are. The tension in the room was palpable as he watched the storm rage outside. In the dark, silence was punctuated by the occasional creak of the building, or the distant hum of voices that seemed to seep through the walls. The jump scare came unexpectedly. As he lay in bed, eyes wide in the darkness, his phone buzzed with a new message. A blurry, grainy photo of his motel door taken from outside. In the photo, a dark figure was barely visible, standing just a few feet away, watching. Panicked, Dylan tried to call the police, but the line remained busy, as if the network was overwhelmed. He tried to check his surroundings, but every mirror and window in the small room seemed to reflect not only his own terrified face, but also hints of movement behind him. The sense of being trapped deepened, and every minute felt like an eternity of dread. He tossed and turned in bed, and in one horrifying moment, he thought he heard a whisper, so soft that it was almost indistinguishable from the sound of the rain, that said, "You cannot escape us." The following morning, the storm had passed, leaving the town drenched and eerily quiet. Dylan knew he couldn't stay in the motel forever, but returning to his apartment seemed too dangerous. He decided to venture out during the day, hoping the sunlight might offer some safety and answers. As he walked through the deserted streets, he noticed strange symbols carved into walls and sidewalks, cryptic markings that he recognized from the comments on Reddit. They were arranged in patterns that seemed to point toward his old apartment building. With a sinking feeling, Dylan realized that his tormentors were not random pranksters. They were organized, methodical, and knew exactly where he had been. Dylan's heart pounded as he approached the building. The front door was unlocked, as if inviting him back into the lion's den. With every step, memories of that fateful night in his apartment flooded back. The unexplainable sounds, the messages, the ghostly figure outside his window. The hallway was dim and lined with peeling wallpaper. As he climbed the stairs to his old apartment, he felt the weight of unseen eyes following him. When he reached his floor, he paused at the door, its handle cold to the touch. Taking a deep breath, he pushed it open. Inside, the apartment was exactly as he had left it, but now it felt like a stage set for his nightmare. The room was dark, with only the weak daylight filtering through drawn curtains. On the floor, muddy footprints led from the door straight to his living room. The walls were marked with strange symbols, drawn hastily in what looked like red ink. Dylan's pulse raced as he walked through the apartment, each creak of the floorboards echoing like a sinister drum. Then, in the living room, he found a note taped to the mirror. In simple, bold letters it read, "Reddit warned you. You should have stayed silent." The note was accompanied by a short video file on his computer, one he had not seen before. With shaking hands, he opened the file. The video began with static, and then slowly, a dark figure emerged. It was the same figure he had seen on his phone, a tall, shadowy silhouette with glowing eyes that bore into the camera. The figure raised a hand, as if beckoning him, and then the video cut to black with the sound of a low, guttural laugh. In that moment, Dylan realized that his life had been irrevocably changed by his reckless words on the internet. He had dared to mock something far more dangerous than he could ever understand. A sudden noise made him jump. A thud from the apartment balcony. Dylan rushed to the window and looked out. On the balcony, barely visible in the weak daylight, was a group of figures huddled together, watching him. Their faces were obscured by shadows and hoods, but their intent was clear. They had come for him. Panic surged through him, and he scrambled to gather his belongings. Every instinct screamed to run, but he was paralyzed by fear and the chilling realization that they had been waiting for him all along. Dylan fled the apartment, racing down the stairs and out onto the street. The group of figures followed at a distance, their silent pursuit a constant threat. With every step he took, he could hear their slow, deliberate footsteps matching his pace. He jumped into a taxi, hoping the driver wouldn't notice the pale terror on his face. But as the taxi sped away, he saw one of the hooded figures standing in the street, staring directly at him with eyes that glowed in the fading light. That sight, that single, soul-piercing gaze, was enough to make him scream. The rest of the day was a blur of frantic movement. Dylan traveled from one safe house to another, always looking over his shoulder, always in fear of the inevitable moment when his pursuers would catch up to him. Every night brought fresh horrors, unexplained knocks on doors, eerie whispering voices in empty hallways, and the relentless, chilling feeling of being watched. His online presence was erased. Every account, every post was gone, as if the Midnight Circle had erased his digital footprint along with his freedom. Weeks later, Dylan's tale would be shared on Reddit in a post titled, "Reddit is Scary. They Chased Me Home," a desperate warning to all who thought the internet was harmless. In his post, he recounted every terrifying detail, the messages, the ghostly images, the stalking figures, and pleaded with readers to be careful with their words. But his story was met with a mix of disbelief, sympathy, and a creeping sense of dread that spread through the community. Some claimed his story was a modern urban legend, while others swore they had experienced similar horrors. The post became a haunting reminder that some corners of the internet were not meant for mockery, and that certain groups, shrouded in darkness and ancient grudges, would stop at nothing to silence those who dared to speak out. For Dylan, escape was temporary. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the hooded figures and heard the echo of their footsteps. In quiet moments, when the world seemed to sleep, the chilling whisper of "you cannot escape us" would drift into his consciousness. He knew that the price of his careless words was a life forever haunted, a life in which the past, embodied by the cold, relentless presence of those he had mocked, would forever chase him through every shadow and every dark corner. And so, Dylan's story serves as a dire warning. Tread carefully in the digital world, for behind every comment lies a reality more terrifying than any horror story. Reddit, it seems, can be a gateway to nightmares, and sometimes the scariest horrors are the ones that follow you home. And just like that, a simple joke became a nightmare. But some things don't end when you log off, they follow you. If you enjoyed the chills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, be careful what you say online. Someone or something might be listening.